We're back. So today we're having coffee. It's a Sunday morning. We're about to walk the dogs and wanted to film a little conversation about what we like in watches. And I sort of phrase this as what is your platonic ideal of a watch, or what are the design features that really do it for you, right? How do you what connects you to a watch, and is there basically something consistent about that? And for me, I think it has become clear that I love the Speedmaster professional moon watch. You will always hear our dogs, I'm assuming, in these videos because we're not editing and they take this opportunity even when they're outside to bark. And you can see I have scratches on this, but this was my first luxury watch, and this was also the first watch where I was like, I think I love it. And it became clear to me that I like it. And what do I love about it? I like that it is informational, but I also like that it is full of information while also being very simplistic. The matte black, the white, it's a very classic design. And, I now have a new edition Speedmaster. We have a couple of Speedmasters, but this is the trilogy Speedmaster. And, it's also going to be very classically designed and classically styled. There's no real surprises in these watches. The IWC I have really enjoyed is also a clean aesthetic, bold in terms of its legibility, but it's also, again, not going to wow you in terms of it's really out there. It is a clean classic design. Rolex Oyster cases and Rolex professional models, again, to me, very conservative in some ways, very classic, very consistent, and they work for me. I've realized that I like the iconic models and the icons of a particular brand, but also I guess what's consistent is just the classic styling. So Empress, what do you think? Have you discovered something that you really love in watches? Do you feel like for me, it's the Speedmaster that has my heart. I am obsessed with it. Even though I want more Rolexes, I like them as well. If I had to say what's my favorite watch, it's the Speedy Professional, the Speedmaster in general. I don't know why. I try to explain why, but in general, it just continues to enthrall me, hook me. And so is there anything design-wise in watches that you feel works similarly for you?
I have found that there are a multitude of things that pull me to a watch. So for my favorite Seiko, it's how the dial mimics the ocean, with the blue going from a lighter blue down to a darker blue. And so sometimes it's that dial. That dial for me will give a pop. So another watch that I like is the Cartier Roadster.
Right.
And so it's just unique, and it's based off of a Vegas style of roulette wheel.
Right.
And so I look at that and I'm like, that is just unique and it's special. It's why I also like very antique watches, because it's not something that people are wearing every day. Their uniqueness. There is a brand out there that I'm currently stalking called the Young Hans watches.
Oh, the Young Hans watches, yeah.
Yeah. And in some of their, I like little unique things. So on some of their dials, there's a 6-pointed star, especially on the older versions, which I think is interesting, coming out of, I believe they're a German company.
Right.
So their older watches has a 6-pointed star on it. Later, it's been turned into a starburst.
Is it a 5-pointed star in the later ones, or is it 8 points?
I think it's an 8-pointed star in the later ones. But also, I like things like the Tudor. This is how minute I get. The Tudors with the rose on the dial,
right,
are the ones that have pulled me because they are just so unique and so different.
Right. And so you want a Tudor. I have the Black Bay 58.
Which I love.
You love it? Okay.
I do love it.
And you want a Tudor that has the rose. So
yes.
If you were going to get a Tudor, that's been the criteria that we've been looking at are you really like the big rose Tudors or at least a rose on the dial.
Yes, I like the rose on the dial. But then I have those moments, like for a long time throughout our collecting, I was like, I'm not a Rolex girl. I'm not a Rolex girl. But the one time I see in person a Rolex Yachtmaster,
the rhodium dial Yachtmaster, which is not this, but this is your rhodium dial.
That is my rhodium dial, which I do. That was a present, and so it's very near and dear to me. But when I saw the Rolex Yachtmaster rhodium dial in person, for those of you that are into numbers, it's the 116622. In person, that pulled me. In pictures, it did not. But in person, I was like, okay, that can be in my collection. That can be a future purchase. And then I saw with a blue dial, which I do love, a beautiful deep blue sapphire. My birthstone.
Are you talking about the blue Yachtmaster?
The blue Yachtmaster. Yeah. When I saw that, I haven't seen it in person, but when I've seen pictures of that, that has been like, ooh, I love a blue sapphire. And those there's certain things that just pull me to say, this is gorgeous, this is classic, this is unbelievably unique.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I go for.
Yeah.
But I know my criteria usually, how old is it? The older, that's what I want. Those are the pieces that I want because no one's walking around in that stuff.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're a little more into the eclectic side. I mean, there's some traditional things that you like, classic things that you like in watches, but you will fixate on a design element that you think is a little bit unconventional, a little bit out there. So unlike me, where I really want to stay the course and I like things that are very predictable in a sense, you like the things in the brands that are a little more atypical. So the Junghans logo with a 6-pointed star, the Tudor rose, you tend to like those. You like vintage. You also like things like the Cartier Roadster. It's not the Santos. It's not the Cartier Tank. It's, I would go for the Santos and I would go for the Cartier Tank because those are the emblematic pieces in their lineup. You kind of like a little more off the beaten path. So in the same household, we have two different styles and two different approaches, right? I think that having a sense of what you really like is really key because a lot of people figure that out. And I think everybody has to sort of figure that out as you go along. And people will figure that out and then they will sell watches that are not it. You experiment with a watch, you sell it. I totally get that. My problem is that I attach to a watch. I fortunately haven't had many watches that I bought and they were kind of a mistake and they're not in line with my tastes, and I'm sort of stuck with them. That hasn't happened often, but I attach to a watch, I wear it, and I get the memories and I get used to it. So for me, it's really important to pick the watches that align with what I like. And I think you're less so in that sense, that you probably would be okay selling things if you didn't really like them. But also you tend to acquire a lot slower than I do. Like you rarely say, I really want that watch right now. Right. Like you kind of think about it a lot longer. Yep. And I think I'm much more impulsive about it. But I still feel like I'm impulsive within a certain range, the range of like, I like the sports models generally speaking, and I like the kind of iconic or flagship looks for a brand. But even more so now, what I've really figured out is that I want more Speedmasters, a few, and I want more professional or sports Rolexes. Not because they're so popular, but because I'm going to do a longer meditation on wearing the BL&R for 2.5 months straight without changing. And what I realized, I feel like I really clarified why I gravitate toward these models. It's not the hype. I know that's a part of it. You can't say it has no factor whatsoever, like Rolex branding, Rolex unattainability, the Rolex stuff. You can't totally say that has no bearing on your relationship to Rolex as a brand, but it's not the driving factor. And even before I really knew what was going on with Rolex, I wanted a GMT watch. I wanted the all black GMT. But I figured out what it is that I like about these watches so much. And I will talk about that in a longer video, just about the BLNR and wearing it. But yeah, we are two women collectors who have different takes on it. We don't have your watches here, but we'll do like a state of the collection for each of us and talk about, the pieces. That'll be fun to do. But I wanted to get this video out and just talk about have we figured out what we really, really love in watches, right? And I think, yes, we have figured it out, and clarifying it and saying what it is can help you make better choices. And again, these choices may not matter as much if you are okay with experimenting with a watch and then passing it on to the next person. In my case, I am not okay with that. I am really not okay with selling watches. So I have to be fairly strategic and thoughtful. Even as I want to jump at a piece, I really have to make sure, is it what I would most want, which are the classic designs and styles, the Speedies, the Rolex sports models, a few other outliers, but still within their brand, they are kind of more the heritage looks. And for you, I think you've said already that if you get a Tudor, it has to be a rose Tudor.
Yes.
And you've said that you're very interested in the Cartier Roadster as some next steps. So we'll keep thinking about that. And you've really identified within Rolex, which is not quirky. I mean, you like something a little more eccentric, but even within Rolex, the piece that you like is a line that's not famous. It's not the right. Hot line, the Yachtmaster. People really sleep on that. Like, you like within Rolex, you like a little more of the off the beaten path.
I do, and I like that large, some people are like, oh my goodness, it's that dial is so large. And I'm like, yeah, I can rock that.
Oh, the bezel of the Yachtmaster? Yeah.
It is so large. But I'm like, I can rock that.
Right.
I'll rock that in a dress.
Sure.
Corseted up, no problem. I will rock it.
Yeah. You wear big watches.
Like it was my grandmother's Seiko. I will rock that sucker.
And to be clear, the Yachtmaster comes in different sizes. The 37 millimeter, I want to say, or 36 millimeter plus a 40. And so it comes in a couple of sizes, but you would probably get the 40 or
close to the 40.
Yeah, or if it's a 40. Rolex is, changing their numbers a little minutely. I think it's a 40 and a 37, I want to say. But
yeah, I would go with the 40, and I would, I would. And I wouldn't wear anything else. Like, I would wear it.
Yeah.
And it would stand out as a beautiful, like, for many women, it's, the watches are jewelry, but it would be a beautiful jewelry piece, but it would also be just like a statement as to who I am. Yes, I wear big watches.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm good with that.
I wear big watches. Like
I wear them big, baby. I wear them really big.
I love big butts, and I cannot lie. What song is that? It's a bad song. I'm not going to say all the lyrics. Hey, it's not a bad song. It's a song from my childhood. Yeah. Wait, is that Sir Mix-a-Lot? What am I saying the word? So. I love big butts and I cannot lie.
I think you're messing up the lyrics.
And when a girl walks in with an itty bitty waist and a brown
that's
so okay. What is that? Is that Sir Mix-a-Lot?
Yes, I believe it is.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that is. Okay. So you like big watches.
And big watches. Like,
you also might like big butts, but anyway, we can get her one. Okay, we're getting a little silly here. So to bring it home, then we've identified for us what really works in watch collecting, what we like. It may, for me, I don't think it'll change. For you, it might change. I don't know. We'll see what happens in this journey. I can appreciate the experimental style or the off the beaten path, the avant-garde looks that other collectors are into. But the way I think about watches and why I like the classically styled pieces, is the way I think about men's fashion, because I like to style myself kind of in that vein. And it's like the navy blue suit, guys, dudes out there, the navy blue suit with a crisp white shirt, some really nice shoes and great accessories, great belt and stuff. That is never going to go out of style. That is going to be eminently useful, stylish, a nice tailored suit. Because again, if I wear men's clothes, I have to have it tailored to my size, my style, my hips and everything. So whatever your body style is, a nice tailored suit that is a navy blue suit you can change up the shirts and everything. That's never going to be out of style. When I look at it, I got navy blue suits that I've had, 10 years. And as long as I don't gain any more pandemic pounds, I can fit them and wear them, and they're not going to be outdated, right? So that's what I tend to like in watches and cologne. Maybe we should do an episode on cologne and watches. That would be fragrances and watches.
Ooh.
That would be really nice, because we have other interests, and fashion, fragrance are some of our mutual interests. Lego, we can see it might be a stretch to do Lego and watches, video games and watches. But that's partly why I like the classic pieces, is because it fits in with my style, my fashion sensibilities, and they're never going to get old. They're never going to get tiring for me. Whereas the more experimental, flamboyant, or, avant-garde pieces, I worry that in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, I'll look at that piece. I'll be like, what the heck? What is this? It'll feel like like a jean jacket, which is coming back around, right? But fashion does that. It goes in and out of favor. Certain styles go in and out of favor. Certain styles do not. So that's where I fall. All right. Well, that was our little take on what is the platonic ideal. What are the design features that really intrigue you or do it for you? And we just thought of some other topics that we might talk about. Fragrances and watches would be really fun. Because we're fragrance heads. We really love fragrances. Peace.